by just bringing up the keyword panel, and I'll type in splash. And now that keyword has been added to that portion of the clip. You see from this blue bar up here that that's been added to that portion of that clip. I can go back here to the beginning, select another range here where the car is skidding, and I can put in a skid keyword. Put in a skid keyword. And now I've got that keyword on that portion of the clip. And over here in the left-hand column, you'll notice that I've got a skid and splash smart collection that have automatically been added. If I open up this clip, you can see that I can select, and I can select those two ranges of that clip. This is really powerful. A lot of times you have really long clips. You have a 20-minute clip, and you might have a few 10-second segments in the middle that are interesting. And instead of having to keyword the whole thing with splash and skid, and then have to go back and find the pieces you want, you can tag just the sections that you're interested in. There's also a favoriting mechanism, like with the favorite button. It's really powerful, and it's amazing when you have a lot of content and you're trying to find things. You can do this, and the keywords can overlap. So you can have the same section of media can have multiple keywords on it. So it's really powerful for being able to organize your footage. Now, the list view is one way to look at this, but I also have a film strip view. And in the film strip view, we get film strips of all your content with skimming. You get to control the time frame. We're currently set to 1 thumbnail for each 10 seconds of video. And you'll notice as I scroll down here, without even having to move the cursor around, I can tell what's in each of these clips. I'm sure everybody here has had the situation where you're trying to find some content, and you double-click on something, you open it up, you scrub back and forth, not that one, close it, double-click on something, scrub back and forth. And it's an incredibly time-consuming process. Here, I can just scroll down and I can see, okay, I've got the car coming up the hill, I've got the car skidding along here. You know, you've got all of these clips that are really, really easy to identify. And I can make selections in here, I can put keywords on. I can also just drag a selection over to one of these keyword collections, skid, that automatically puts the skid keyword on that portion of the clip. So now, if I come up and select skid, I'm now looking at those two segments of those two clips that have that skid keyword on it. It's that easy to get back to the content that you want to. So it's really a huge improvement in the organization process in Final Cut Pro 10. So, I'm going to jump down to the timeline now, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my timeline index. The timeline index is actually a chronological listing of everything that's in the timeline. And you can search on this. You can find any clip, any title, anything you want, you can find it directly here in the timeline index. It also has a section for tags. And this allows you to put markers within a timeline that you can get back to really easily, or even to-do markers that you can assign and then check off as you finish them. I'm going to use this as kind of a cheat sheet to jump around within the timeline. First thing I'm going to do is jump down here a little bit and scroll down and zoom in just a little bit here. So I'm going to demonstrate the magnetic timeline. So you'll see that these clips in here, the stuff that's in the primary storyline, we have these little green lines that show the clip connections to the audio. So if I pick up a clip and move it around, things move around, but the audio that's associated with that clip moves with it. The sync is maintained as I move things around. I can move stuff around earlier and later in the timeline. I can also pick up a clip that has things attached to it, and the audio that's attached to it moves with it automatically. And the timeline rearranges itself as I go. The magnetic timeline also allows me to do things like, for example, if I go to extend this piece of audio, normally when I get to this point where it's going to hit that other audio clip, I wouldn't be able to move it any further. I'd have to go move that other one out of the way and worry about what other things that was going to affect. Here I just move it down a little further, and I go This gives you an incredible amount of freedom to work on a timeline because you're not messing with things further down in time. Your timelines are no longer fragile. It's really amazing. And one of the things you'll notice here is there are no hard tracks in this interface. There aren't really any tracks. Tracks come and go as needed. So you can have things stacked up really deep in one section and only a few in another section, no problem. Really, really easy. Now, as Pete was talking about, audio sync is something, for each one of these clips that's in the primary storyline, it has the audio, the primary audio is connected to it and appears in the same block within the primary storyline. we do a bunch of different things to line up. If you're doing secondary audio, if you have second source audio, we do a number of things to line those up for you. We can take the time code from those two items, line them up. We can even, if you're using, say, a DSLR, you can let the audio run, the mic on the camera run as scratch audio. Take your secondary audio from second source. When you bring those in, we'll go and analyze the waveforms and figure out how to line those up based on that. And then once those have been locked together, nothing that you do at this level of timeline can ever knock those out of sync. Now, if you do get something out of sync for some reason, this clip we've actually deliberately pushed out of sync. So if we play this back, or by this powerful machine, that's way out of sync. So that's easy to fix if that does happen for some reason. I can just double click, and now what's happened is that we've jumped down inside that clip. So I can see the separate audio and the separate video. I'm going to roll back up here to the beginning, and if I zoom in, we can see right here where the slate audio is, but that doesn't happen in the video until a little bit later. One of the other things to notice here is, as I'm zoomed in this far, you'll notice there's kind of a light band here. That represents one frame, but the playhead is actually going at a tighter resolution than that. I've got sample accurate resolution for aligning audio. So if I want to put these things back in sync, I can just pick this up, drag it over, the viewer's actually updating, and I can just go to the spot where that lines up. I'll back out a little bit, and we'll go back down to this other section right here. In sync. So at this level I can make adjustments, but when I jump back up a level to my timeline, now they're in sync. Propelled forward by this powerful. And at this level, I can't actually knock things out of sync accidentally. It's just not possible. Now, another thing that we have is what we call secondary storylines. A lot of times when you're working on B-roll, you want to be able to do the same types of operations that you do in this primary storyline. So that's what we have up here. I can click and I can drag around. And I'm just going to step back to the beginning to go to one of those demo gremlins I was talking about. So if I go ahead and move this around, you can see that the secondary storyline behaves exactly like the primary storyline does. I can move things around, I can go in here and I can put transitions in on my secondary storyline up here. I can even pick this up and move it around as a little group up above. So it makes it really easy to actually do edits in your B-roll really easily without having to cobble things into little tiny pieces together on a whole bunch of different tracks. It makes editing a lot easier. Let's jump a little bit earlier in the timeline here, and I'll zoom in. Now let's take a look at the precision editor. So we have an edit here. I mean, this is the first time you press it. So he kind of stumbles a little bit. It'd be nice if he started right as he started to say something interesting. I can just double click on the edit here, and the precision editor opens up. What I'm looking at here is I can skim and see the content on the left clip before the edit, but I can also see all the content that's available to me past the edit. On the clip to the right, I can see all the clip that's in the edit and all the content that's before the edit. So I can see all of the media in the edit. A lot of times what you end up having to do is, when you want to add some frames, you have to add some extra and then take them back off again. Here you can see them before you even get there. And I can move this around, I can grab either side of the edit to move things around. I can roll the edit by just grabbing the center. And I'm doing everything using the mouse here because that works well for a demonstration, but everything I'm doing here can be driven from the keyboard. So for example, I just come in, type in +10, and it's going to move by 10 frames. So no worries, everything can be driven from the keyboard. What I'm going to do is, to find the spot where he starts saying something interesting, I'm going to turn on audio skimming. And this is pitch-corrected audio skimming. This is the first time you got So right here, when he says the first, I can just skim to that. It makes it really easy to find something. Between the waveform and the audio skimming, it's really easy. And all I have to do is click. And when I click, the edit moves to that point. I can double click on this, and now the
first time you press on the gas pedal, it's
right in that one spot. That's fine for the audio, but he's not looking at the camera. So he doesn't look at the camera until over here. So it'd be really nice if the video, if we stayed on the video with his audio cutting in under. That's really easy to do. I can just double click on the audio, and then the audio comes down in a separate element, and then the ends of the audio and video can be adjusted independently. L-Cuts and J-Cuts are super easy. All I have to do is grab this and drag over to the point. And now,
the first time you press on the gas pedal, it's quite an experience, isn't it?
Just like that. You notice as I did this, I can even open up another clip, and I can look at the audio for that one, but if I want to push the audio for this one over, the other one gets out of the way. So L-Cuts and J-Cuts, normally with an L-Cut and J-Cut, when you're moving one and you have to change the other one to make space, here you get to adjust things based on what's appropriate for each side of the edit. So you can do things that are much more complicated than a traditional L and J-Cut much more easily. Let me show you a little bit more audio. I have a little control down here on the right that allows me to select what I see in the timeline. So I can see just an overview if I'd like to keep it simpler. I can also go over and see audio. You can see some nice big audio waveforms in here. For each audio clip, if you want to adjust your fade in and fade out, you have fade handles here. You just grab the fade handle. I can right-click on this to choose how I want to do that. But say I want to adjust the audio in the middle of a clip. I'm going to have to put in keyframe dots, right? Nope. Use my range select tool, grab the line, and turn the lines up or down. And not only that, you'll notice the waveform is adjusting in real time to show you when things are getting close to peak or clipping, right in the waveform. Visually balance levels out a lot of the times without even having to listen to it. So I also have full control of the fades on either end. You know, I can do ramps on the sides of this, and all the waveforms adjust in real time as I'm doing that. So really powerful. I'm going to go ahead now and switch back to my thumbnails. Put the thumbnails back on. And let's zoom out just a little bit here. Now, this section here where we've got a bunch of audio, we've got a bunch of cuts up here in the main storyline, we've got a bunch of audio down here, and that's all really important as I'm putting that together. But once I get that all figured out, this all becomes kind of visual noise. And so one of the things I can do with compound clips is I can select a group of clips like this, and with a single keystroke, I can collapse that together into a compound clip. That maintains all of the edits exactly as they were, but this now behaves as a single clip that I can trim, I can cut, I can do anything I want to. If I double click on it, I can jump down inside and see all of the stuff that was there and continue to edit this piece. But it lets me do it at different levels so I can control the complexity that I'm looking at in the timeline. So let me jump over a little bit further down here. We'll zoom in a little bit. And now I'm going to show retiming. We've got retiming directly in the timeline. So we've got this nice clip. It's a little slow. It'd be nice to speed that up. All we have to do is select the clip, come up to the menu, select fast, 4x. That clip is now 4 times as fast. But it'd be really nice if we had it going fast at the beginning and slow toward the end. No problem. I'm just going to select the second half of the clip, come back to my menu, choose normal, and now the second part of the clip is at 100% and the first part's at 400. Really easy. But it's all live, so I can grab this and I can make this part longer, slower. It's telling me that when it's green, it's 100%, or if it's blue, it's faster. I can adjust this segment over here, back and forth. But notice as I do this, as I pull this shorter, look what's going to happen over there on the right. Those two audio clips are going to bump into each other, which would normally be a huge problem. No, they just get out of the way. I don't have to worry about what's going on further about that, you can just edit in someplace and everything downstream is going to stay in sync the way you intended it. It's a really amazing change in the way that you get to work with this application. I want it. So the next thing I want to show is color matching. So we have this clip, it's a sunset shot, and the next one is the cars driving away. It'd be nice if those two matched. All you have to do is come up here and choose match color. And this brings up the 2-up display. And then I just select the clip I want to match to. So if we want to match to the interview shot, I just click. If I want to match to the inside of the car, sunset shot. Now, one thing I'll show you here, see the orange bar up there? That's the render bar that's up there. And, oh, it's on. There's extra cycles, renders. You don't have to do anything. It's automatically doing that all the time in the background, making sure the stuff is rendered. It's pretty amazing. So, that quickly, we've done a match. Look at a nice color match between those things with a click. So, pretty cool. Look. Let me jump down a little bit further here. So, we have another, this shot here, this is shot on a GoPro camera. This brings up a really good point. This piece has a bunch of different types of content in it. Final Cut Pro 10 allows you to mix and match content without having to do any sort of transcoding. So, we can take in, the footage from your DSLRs, you can take in ABC HD, you can take in stuff from a GoPro, and you can just edit it natively. All the timeline. You can mix and match sizes, doesn't matter, it just takes care of it. So, this footage, you'll notice up in the roof of the car, it's kind of muddy, it's kind of black there. So it'd be nice to do a little color correction here. So I'm going to go ahead and choose to show my color board. And when I choose the color board, I've got I can adjust the color, the saturation, or the exposure. I've got a master control, and then I have controls for highlights, midtones, and shadows. So I can go ahead and just grab the shadow control and just bring up the shadows. So we'll bring up a little bit of detail up in the roof of the car. So that's my primary color correction. If I want to do some secondary color correction, say I want to adjust just her face, I can do that by just adding another color correction. And then I'm going to do color range, so I'm going to use my eyedropper to pick the color range. And I can also do it based on shape. And we've got really nice shape controls in here, where you can choose the size, move it around, you can choose the fall off. These things can be animated over time, so you can follow things around. And then I just go over to the color board, and say we want to go into saturation. I can pull the saturation down, I can pull it up, and I'm just adjusting it on that color range and on that section of the clip. So, some really impressive color corrections, primary and secondary color correction, built right into the application. Now, with this clip here, it would be really nice to we want to push her up a little bit further into the corner of the frame. So I'm just going to go up, I'm going to click my cropping control. This allows me to either trim the clip, I can crop it, I can even do a Ken Burns effect where I can pan across the video really easily. I'm going to select crop, and I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to bring my crop control in, move her up, done. She's kind of cropped over on this side, a couple of clicks. But now, I've got some footage underneath of this car. It'd be nice if I actually animated this up and across. So all I'm going to do is just choose a frame. I'm going to bring up my keyframing controls and add one keyframe at this point. I'll move my playhead a little bit earlier. Now I'm just going to grab the center of the frame, drag it over. I get nice guides to show me where the centers are. Then that automatically puts in a keyframe. I'm going to go earlier, and I'm going to pull this down. Pull that down. And I get a nice Bezier path there. I can also say that I just want that to be a linear path. And so now, when I do this, you'll see this come up and move over. Just like that, keyframe directly in the timeline. But one of the things I notice here is that as this is kind of going across, notice the clip underneath ends, and we see a flash of that interview shot coming back in there. So what I can do is I can click here, and I can show my animation graph. So I can actually see all of the keyframes in place in the timeline. So for example, I can grab this keyframe, and I can drag it back over here to where that clip underneath still exists. And so now, I no longer see that flash of that other clip underneath. I can see everything in context. Timeline is really powerful. I'm going to jump down. The last thing I want to demonstrate is auditions. So this is something where a lot of times, see the closing shot here, this is a good example of something where as you're editing, you potentially find shots that you think, oh, this would be good as a closing shot. But you don't really want to make that decision yet. You want to do that kind of toward the end. So you can collect these shots together into an audition group, and then you can switch between them very easily and try them out. Now you notice, these are all different lengths. So as that's happening, because of the magnetic timeline and the clip connections, everything to the right is just sliding around, staying in sync exactly like you intended it to. To try these out, all I have to do is press the space bar. When I want to try the next one, press the right arrow, space bar again. Try another one. That one feels a little bit long. I'm going to go back to this middle one, press return, shots in place, nothing's out of sync. Just as easy as that. Director, and you want to stack up a bunch of decisions so they can come in, make the decisions one right after the other, and get out. This makes it so much easier to do that sort of thing. So that's just a few of the features in the new Final Cut Pro 10, and thank you very much for letting me be the one to shine.
So, the new Final Cut Pro 10, like Pete and Randy said, it's really all about three things. It's about image quality, being able to work with everything from found over there with DV, all the way up to 4K, and being able to deal with all of that color sync and all of that high quality media and render it all in the background and keep it all going all the time. And then, organization. Being able to have all that content ingested and put into a sensible structure so you know exactly what you're doing before you even begin, that's an incredible leap forward. That means that you're already halfway there before you even hit the timeline. And speaking of the timeline, what about that incredible timeline? Nobody will ever have to worry about sync issue ever again, and that's just incredible. So, the new that was a sneak peek. That was the worldwide sneak peek. Just so you realize, we've had a few people who have been using this on our beta program, using it in the RIP world, who have had given us quite a lot of feedback. And I just wanted to share just 2 or 3 of those things with you, because I just want to let you know just how other people, other than Apple people, are thinking about the product right now. So let's start out with Outpost Digital in New York. Final Cut Pro 10 is blazingly fast. I experienced out-of-this-world performance working in 1080p and even 4K resolutions. In LA, I love the new interface. The magnetic timeline is a huge advancement, which lets me focus on editing instead of worrying about syncing. Editors just want to make great cuts, and Final Cut Pro 10 makes that easy. And then finally, Dean Devlin, who anybody who knows him realizes that he's a big Final Cut fan, is here tonight. And once again, Apple brings us a game changer. New era of digital editing. So these guys have had it for a little while, so the question is, when can you have it? Well, I'm pleased to tell you that we will be shipping in June. How can you get it? Well, you'll be able to download it directly onto your Mac via. So how much will it cost? Last, we've had a number of different flavors. We've had upgrade pricing, we've had Final Cut Express, we've had Final Cut Studio. So we decided that we wanted to really do away with all of that. We wanted to greatly simplify the pricing structure and make it very, very easy for you to decide that you want to get a copy of Final Cut Pro. So we've decided to make it available for the amazing price of $299. So the only thing that is left really for me to say is, frankly, thank you.